called them. They said they were going to do one yesterday at 5 and then one Friday, but then they don't have that. Yeah. It doesn't work like that in Congress or anywhere else. They had one there too.
Did you get one?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Did you see it?
Yeah. That's the first thing I noticed. Is it's all ramped down. Yeah. Yeah, they must have put that in right over.
Well, like Lieutenant Governor or whoever. Yeah.
That's sad. Have to change your name to Judge.
Yeah, really. Around the block.
That's the way Doreen used to always be late for our regional transportation meetings. I think we hold them in the open.
Where you been? Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, Santa Barbara. I will now call to order the June 7th, 2018 meeting of the Santa Barbara Local Agency Formation Commission. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Aceves?
Here.
Commissioner Geyer?
Here.
Commissioner Hartman? Commissioner Ishganian? Commissioner Lavanino? Here. Commissioner Richardson? Here. Commissioner Stark?
Here.
Commissioner Waterfield? Commissioner Welt?
Here.
Commissioner Wolf? Here.
Thank you. At this time, please stand and join the commission in pledging allegiance to the flag. Jim.
Place your hand over your heart and repeat with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Steve, I'm going to turn to you to acknowledge Tom Urbanski.
Thank you very much, Chair. You know, it's I'm sure most of you know that former county supervisor, former city councilman in the city of Santa Maria, former LAFCO, longtime LAFCO member Tom Urbanski passed away a couple of weeks ago. And Tom still stopped by my office. And I remember the first time I was running, he actually asked a question in the debate that I had no idea what he was talking about. He was way ahead of his time when it came to public health, the homeless issues, mental health, and I know he will be missed. Was a great representative of the people. He used to, he's well known for riding his bike and going door to door. Even when it was an election year, he would just want to know what everybody was thinking about. So we will miss Tom, and if you could join me in a moment of silence, I think that would be great. Okay, thank you very much. And like I said, he will be missed. He was a great guy.
Thank you very much, Steve. Well done. The next item of business is the approval of minutes of the May 3rd, 2018 meeting. Can I please get a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Oh, hang on. Roll call. Roll call. Roll call.
Commissioner Aceves?
Aye.
Commissioner Guyer?
Aye.
Commissioner Shkanian? Commissioner Lavanino? Commissioner Richardson? Commissioner Wolf?
Aye.
Chair Welch.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Public comment. Now is the time for members of the public to speak on items that are not on today's agenda. Are there any requests to speak on items not on the agenda?
Chair Welch and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on general public comment today.
Okay, is this the time we want to hear from Mr. Foss? No. It is not. Thank you. The next item of business is approval of the consent calendar. Are there any comments or questions from the commission? If there are no questions or comments, can I please have a motion?
I'll motion that we move the consent calendar.
Second. Thank you.
Commissioner Aceves?
Aye.
Commissioner Guyer?
Aye.
Commissioner Shkanian? Commissioner Lavanino? Commissioner Richardson? Commissioner Wolf?
Aye.
Chair Welch.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The next item is change of organization item number 1. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Welch and members of the commission, change of organization item number 1 is to consider recommendations regarding LAFCO application file 18-02 for the Foss annexation to the Santa Ynez Community Services District.
Are there any comments or questions from the commission?
Mr. Chairman, I have a brief PowerPoint.
Okay.
It'll take me a few minutes,
Thank you.
and we'll put that up on the screen. First of all, this is Paul Hood, the LAFCO Executive Officer, and so we have a brief PowerPoint for the Foss annexation. It's a little hard to read, but the applicant in this case for the annexation, which is to the Santa Ynez Community Services District, is the Community Services District Board of Directors, and the application was filed on January 17th, or approved. The resolution of application was approved on the 17th. The annexation is comprised of 0.74 acres located at 821 Friendship Lane, which is a private street, and bounded by Carriage Drive. The purpose of the annexation is to provide wastewater services to an existing single-family home, which is currently using a septic tank, and a proposed ADU, accessory dwelling unit. The accessory structure on the site is currently what used to be a garage. It was used as a preschool pursuant to a conditional use permit that was issued by the county. The existing accessory structure will be demolished and replaced with the ADU in the same general location. The conditional use permit would then be voluntarily terminated as a condition of the building permit. Both structures, as I mentioned, will be connected to the wastewater system from the Santa Ynez CSD. And it was, I suggested that both structures be connected, and Mr. Foss agreed that that would be something he would want to do. The area is within the sphere of influence of the Santa Ynez CSD. This map is a little hard to read on the screen, but it's included in your staff report. It's adjacent to the existing boundaries, and that is the configuration. Friendship Lane is up on the top portion of the site, which I can't. And it's a private street. It's not connected to the adjacent carriageway, which runs along parallel to it. And I've given you the APN land use configuration, single-family residential, and the comprehensive land use development plan states that it should be connected to a public sewer if there is additional development that would take place. And pursuant to the county general plan, there will be no change in land use for this annexation, and all surrounding land uses are single-family residential. The Santa Ynez CSD determined as lead agency that they would approve a categorical exemption, and LAFCO staff will file a notice of exemption following approval of this annexation. Plan for services, of course, because it's a very small annexation, the Santa Ynez CSD has adequate sewer capacity, wastewater capacity, and the area is served by the Santa Ynez Water Conservation District Improvement District 1, ID1 as we know it. The annexing agency has agreed to waive conducting authority proceedings. Property owners also consent to the annexation, and following your consideration today, if it's approval, the annexation can proceed without any kind of a notice hearing or protest hearing. So in conclusion, and I'll stop there, we recommend approval because it represents a logical and reasonable expansion of the district, and I went over the reasons for it. And your commission usually give you options. Option 1 is approval, and with the findings to approve the categorical exemption and adopt a resolution and finding that all landowners and the annexing agency have agreed to this annexation. Be happy to answer any questions, and Mr. Foss, I know, is anxious to proceed with this, and it's been kind of a long period of time since he filed the application, and so I think he's very happy that we've reached a conclusion today in recommending approval of this annexation. Happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Hood. Any questions, comments from the commission? If not, is this appropriate for time for Mr. Foss to have the forum?
Right.
Thank you.
I would just like to thank Paul for getting me on the agenda, and I had a question. If I get annexed in, how will the building department be notified? Because I am on my way to the building department if this goes through. Could they call somebody? Because Kim Probert will give me the building permit if she knows I'm annexed in. And I just don't want to keep going on and say, well, it'll be 2 weeks. I just wanted to know the procedure, but I appreciate you getting me on, Paul.
Well, I think it's appropriate that the commission take action before we give any commitments to the property owner. But in response to the question, should your commission follow the staff recommendation, we will file a certificate of completion as soon as we can within the next few days. First part of early next week, I think would be a reasonable amount of time. And one thing that we did do is make sure that the maps and legal descriptions are complete and finalized by the county surveyor's office and attached to the resolution that you have in your packet today. The chairman will sign it, and we will issue the certificate of completion within the next few days.
Thank you, Mr. Hood. Thank you, Mr. Foss. Appreciate it. Okay, roll call vote. Oh, a motion. Oh, boy, somebody make a motion. Thank you. Thank you. Now, absolutely.
We're having a discussion here about the effective date, and in general, there is a 30-day reconsideration period that would need to run. But I think that following that, we can file a certificate of completion, and we can also let the planning folks know that the commission acted to approve it. So we would wait for 30 days to file the certificate of completion. That was the discussion that we were having.
So how does that impact the homeowner then?
It means that the notice you would give to the building department would be the recorded document of the annexation. And the practice of Mr. Hood is to wait for that 30 days to run to make sure there isn't a petition for reconsideration from maybe an aggrieved member of the public.
Do we have to do that, or can we wait?
Well, we can't really decide that here as much as Mr. There's an answer to this, and it's not something we can really vote on or change. So Mr. Hood and I can look at this more closely after you take action. And you'll do everything you can today to get this moving. But we're just trying to let the applicant know there may be a 30-day waiting period that we're stuck with. Before it's recorded, yeah. But we'll look at that harder before we give you a decision like that. It's just the way it is. But we'll look at it harder. We're not going to. I just didn't want to give a false impression to the commission that this would be done Friday or Monday when it may be 30 days from today. That's all I'm saying.
So, just to understand, it could be 30 days.
Mr. Chair,
Excuse me.
I had a question from Santa Barbara.
It could be 30 days, but you're going to work on it to see if we can get something to the planning department. Because another month goes by. This is, you know, I don't understand that.
It's a statutory 30-day reconsideration period that we cannot amend or ignore. So
Really?
I think that's the answer. We'll discuss it further, but I think you're stuck with a 30-day waiting period. But we'll look at it harder. I just don't want I don't want commissioners sitting here thinking, this is locked up and Paul will get it recorded on Monday or tomorrow, and that's probably not going to happen because of the law. And that's the normal process.
Okay.
Although bright ideas may come from other sources, but that's...
Okay, can I ask this question? If you vote and annex me in, and there is a 30-day waiting period, let's see, what was my, could Kim Probert know that I'm annexed in? And so then I'll talk to her about giving me a building permit based on the fact that I'm annexed in, but I may have a 30-day wait period. I guess that's my...
The concern there is you're not annexed in until it's recorded. That's the final step that the state recognizes and the statute requires.
Mr. Chair?
That's the law.
I think the best that we could do to expedite Mr. Poss's concerns is you could include in the motion some indication that we would inform Ms. Probert that the commission has taken action and leave it up to them to determine what they need to record and when. I think that's the best that we can do under this statute.
So in that 30-day period, is there any question that I wouldn't be annexed in?
If somebody filed a petition for reconsideration, we'd have to have a hearing on that.
Okay.
Even if it's a slam dunk, turn down of the petition, it triggers a hearing. So I'm not trying to be a mean guy or a good guy. I'm just telling you what
I'm just disappointed in the law.
Yeah.
That's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Seves, did you have a comment?
Well, I just wanted to see if there's, I don't know what the rules are for the county planning to move things forward, but if they receive notification tomorrow that we have approved it, let's say this passes today, that we approved it, but because of the 30-day wait, they won't receive the actual document. Let them proceed with their work, hopefully, and then give them the final recordation once we do the 30-day period. Obviously, if there's an appeal, then everything's on hold, but at least we can move forward until such time as the 30-day comes out.
Okay. Commissioner Hartman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to understand, does someone have 30 days within which to file a protest or an appeal, or so that they could do it on the 29th or 30th day and then we would, or is it really done at the end of 30 days?
Without having any kind of a request for reconsideration, it would be 30 days, and if there's nothing filed within 30 days, it would be approved. Most likely, since there's only one property owner, and they have consented to the annexation, and the conducting authority, which is the district, has agreed to waive any kind of hearings, that it's unlikely that anything would happen within the 30 days. So we need to take a look at this outside of the commission meeting today and see if that would, since we have consent from all of the affected agency and the property owner, if that 30-day reconsideration period can be waived. I want to make sure of that, just to give you an opinion and have Bill give you an opinion that is not well thought out like we usually do. We want to make a deliberation that's based on facts. And we'll do what we can.
And I would just point out the statute says that upon receipt of a timely request for reconsideration, the statute says the executive officer shall not take any further action until the commission acts on the request. We can look at that harder, but that's pretty plain.
Okay.
And it's also our standard procedure. This is not new.
Okay, thank you for that. Any more comments, concerns, observations? If not, the chair will entertain a motion to accept staff's recommendation. It's already been made. Okay, thank you very much. Roll call vote. Thank you.
Commissioner Seves.
Aye.
Commissioner Guyer.
Aye.
Commissioner Ishganian. Commissioner Lavanino. Commissioner Richardson. Commissioner Wolf.
Aye.
Chair Welt.
Aye. Thank you
Motion
very-
passes.
Thank you. The next item of business is business item number 1. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Welt and members of the commission, business item number 1 is to review the LAFCO summer meeting schedule and provide direction to staff.
Thank you for that. Mr. Hood and I have had conversations about our summer schedule, and we were revisiting what we've done in the past, and I asked Mr. Hood about the workload, and so I'd like to turn this conversation over to Mr. Hood.
Yes, in the next couple of months, one item that was continued from the May meeting was for the staff to bring back a review of the agriculture and open space policies that we talked about in May 3rd. If you recall, the Environmental Defense Center sent the commission an open letter, and we also had something on our last agenda from the Cal LAFCO, a white paper that was issued that I think the commission was very interested in both of those and trying to incorporate some language into the commission's policies. One thing I did find out from the Environmental Defense Center recently is that their executive director, Maggie Hall, is on maternity leave until July 9th. So it would be difficult, if not impossible, for me to consult with them. I did talk with Linda Kropp, the chief counsel for the Environmental Defense Center, and I think that she deferred, because of workload, to Maggie. And so I'm thinking that the July meeting may not be the best place to bring back the policies, because we will not have had time to consult with the Environmental Defense Center folks. I don't see anything else really on the agenda for July. I was going to mention in my comments that we have an out-of-agency service agreement from the city of Santa Maria that I will be processing, and I have sent that out for review from affected agencies in the county planning and development. Seems like a very a reasonable request from the city of Santa Maria to approve this out-of-agency service agreement, and I don't believe that that would be a problem. And generally, your executive officer, if there's no outstanding issues, can approve out-of-agency service agreements and have it ratified by the commission at the next meeting. But so we could do that because there's an existing health and safety issue from potable water to the site, and they have some issues that county public health has determined that they need to connect to a water supply, and the water supply is adjacent to the site, and it's outside the sphere of influence, and it's a health and safety issue. So those are a couple of things that could come up in July. And as far as August, it's hard to tell. At this point, what may happen, we may bring the ag policies back at that point, and ratification of the out-of-agency service agreement. But one item that did come up, thanks to alternate Commissioner Stark, he mentioned that we have our October meeting is at the same time as the Cal LAFCO conference in Yosemite. Just happened to notice that. And I completely skipped my and Jacqueline's.
The mountains were
Jacqueline.
calling.
Yeah. Jacqueline's not going anyway, but she's going to make all the arrangements. So in October, we may want to at least schedule a meeting a week later so that we don't conflict with the conference. So the meeting is scheduled currently in October the 4th. We may want to move it to the 11th. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that's good.
So those are my only comments, Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman.
Any comments from any of the commissioners regarding the summer schedule? Commissioner Hartman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Welk?
You want to mention?
Commissioner Hartman.
I'll go first. The August 2nd date is a question mark for me because the Board of Supervisors usually goes dark early August, and so I think that wouldn't be the best time to bring back the agricultural policies.
Thank you. Commissioner Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to say the same thing about that August date, that basically the same thing Supervisor Hartman said, that's when we're dark, and I'm not sure that I would be here. I don't know yet, but there's a possibility I won't be here, so I just want to put that out there. And if there's, and that's such an important topic, I would just say let's move it to September. So it seems like a lot of our meetings have been fairly light anyway, so I would suggest, unless there's some absolute reason we need to have that August meeting, is to just cancel it.
Bill.
Mr. Chair, in conferring with Mr. Hood and your clerk here, Jacqueline, the 11th of October, as an option for the October meeting date, there's a special assessment appeals hearing that day, and it's a 2-day hearing, and the clerk for that board is Jacqueline. So we don't have a clerk for the 11th. We could try to find a backup clerk, but the other option is Jacqueline's pointed out that October 10th, the day before a Wednesday, fits her schedule. That probably also means, therefore, the hearing room is available because we won't have a hearing room, and it is available. She's checked that out. So just for purposes of discussion and to keep our clerk, at the meeting, which is a very important participant, you might consider October 10th for the October meeting date.
Let's deal with July and August first and then move on to that. Any other comments regarding July and August schedule from anybody? I hear a recommendation for the cancellation of August, so do we want to keep July on the books?
Well, I think July might be an issue with the ag policies.
Oh, yes, okay. Well, there was a comment over here, Commissioner Hartman, about maybe pushing that out a little bit. So at September.
Yeah, we moved the July meeting to the 12th from previous day because of the 4th of July. The previous meeting in July was on the 5th. So the commission moved it to the 12th. But we could just as easily, without the ag policies and with the out-of-agency service agreement, not have a July meeting.
Okay, but what I'm hearing is that there's going to be the potential of some supervisors being not here for August.
Go ahead, Mitch.
Mr. Chair, we could always cancel meetings later. It's a little risky to cancel meetings when there's not much in the queue and then find out later a few applications come in and need action.
Okay.
But we've often canceled meetings where Mr. Hood just consults with the chair and puts out a notice of cancellation.
Okay.
So just a thought.
So then the July 12th meeting?
You could be thinking that there's a low likelihood you'll hold a meeting, but still it would stay on the calendar until a few weeks ahead of time.
Keep it on the calendar.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got an idea.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
How about if we just keep the July meeting, we go ahead and cancel August, even though you don't want to cancel August. Okay, we'll keep it on the board, and just so then our only change would be reschedule the October meeting to October 10th and keep it in Santa Maria.
Mr. Chair.
And then we'll probably cancel one of those, July or August.
Commissioner Wolf.
Thank you. October 10th at 1 o'clock, we have a South Coast Sub-Regional meeting. So that would take myself and Supervisor Hartman. We wouldn't be able to potentially be there. I would suggest we leave it on the 11th and work with a clerk to get a substitute to work at our meeting.
The other logistical issue there is since the assessment appeals will be in the Board of Supervisors hearing room, we won't have a remote testimony unless we find one. We'll have to find something in the building. So, but we can work that out.
Can we flip locations?
I think the meeting is, we can work that out. That's a logistical issue. The clerk was a bigger issue in my mind than the alternative hearing room.
Okay, so I'm hearing keep it at October 11.
You know, the subcommittees, SBCAG subcommittee meetings are frequently canceled. That might be something to keep ourselves alert for. If they cancel within plenty of time, then schedule it for the 11th instead of the 12th, or the 10th instead of the 11th. Be fleet-footed.
Yes. Okay, so what I'm hearing is actually no action at this point. So no action. July 12th is good, August 2nd is good, and October 11th is good.
Mr. Chair, from Santa Barbara, I just had a question. Why are we changing October 4th to the 11th again? Please remind me.
Many of the commissioners will be at the LAFCO conference in Yosemite.
Okay. Well, that one obviously we need to change, so I think we can do that one now, and then I would suggest keeping everything the same until we find out what kind of work we have before us.
Okay, Commissioner Seves, is that in the form of a motion?
I will make the motion that we change the October 4th to October 11th.
I'll second it.
All right. No, back to the 11th. Any comments from the commissioners? If not, all those in favor signify by saying, nope. What is this, a roll call?
Commissioner Seves.
Aye.
Commissioner Guyer.
Aye.
Commissioner Shkanian. Commissioner Lavanino. Commissioner Richardson. Commissioner Wolf.
Aye.
Chair Welt.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, good job. The next item is information item number 1. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Welt, members of the Commission, informational item number 1 is to receive and file a presentation on the Santa Barbara County Conservation Blueprint.
Mr. Hood.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had an opportunity back in May 9th at the offering of Commissioner Hartman and her Chief of Staff, Jefferson Litton, to listen to a presentation by Dustin Pierce, and it was on the Blueprint, Santa Barbara County Conservation Blueprint Project. And I was, to be honest, and I mentioned this to Dustin, I was a little bit leery going into it, but the more that we went through the online presentation and I listened to it, I see a real benefit to becoming more familiar with this project and also listening to a demonstration and watching a demonstration. I think it's very hands-on for LAFCO staff and commissioners. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Dustin Pierce, and I'm not sure of the other gentleman. Okay.
Chad? Is that right, Chad?
Chet.
Chet. Thank you, Chet.
Chair Welt and Commissioners, I appreciate your time and your invitation. My name is Chet Work. I'm the Executive Director of the Land Trust for Santa Barbara County. We're a small nonprofit organization with a mission to preserve important agricultural lands, open space, recreation lands, and scenery in the county. We do so with willing landowners, and over a 30-year history, we've protected some 27,000 acres here in this county. Some of those lands you might know. I have with me Dustin Pierce. Dustin works for the Conservation Biology Institute and one of the consultants that the Land Trust and our partners used to draft and complete this conservation blueprint. The conservation blueprint, I think very simply, is a tool that we believe has community benefits for the people of Santa Barbara County to better understand their natural resources, and the future that those places and elements may have. Our partners in this project were the Santa Barbara Foundation, our local community foundation, and the Kachuma Resource Conservation District, of which I assume you all are familiar. These three entities spent the better part of 2.5 years trying to understand the current status of our natural resources in this county, from agriculture to open space, to wildlands, to forests, to plants, to waters, to streams, to groundwater. The three entities saw value in that information in driving our strategic direction and our effectiveness. We also saw real value in understanding the community's opinions about those natural resources, and a lot of the work that we spent was reaching out to the community to understand what kind of places would they like to see conserved, what kind of places would they like to see changed or unchanged in this community. I recognize that all of you have a role in defining the future of this landscape, and we think that some of the tools that we developed to help us may help you. We believe that there's a lot of change coming to Santa Barbara County, tens of thousands of people over the next few decades, and we don't deny that. We just think that the community could use some conservation thoughts as they seek to find where to place those people and what lands and uses we're going to change. Doesn't take you going many feet from this office to see the conversion of agricultural lands, and the decisions that we've made will have long-term impacts. I'll say very clearly, the Conservation Blueprint does not give you the answers. It merely opens the conversation. We believe that an informed community will have a much better conversation, and perhaps this tool is going to be meaningful and valuable for you all as you seek to have that conversation. So I will say we had a wonderful steering committee that worked with us on this project. 12 individuals outside of the membership of the three planning entities, central primary entities, and they are representatives from agriculture primarily, but also from development, from local conservation groups, from our municipalities, the Botanic Garden, other entities. We put together, I thought, a very strong group that would represent a broad perspective of community opinion. And what we have produced is a written guide, and I have copies of our executive summary with me here today for you all to take home. I hope that you might read them. There is a much larger 120-page version of it that we would be happy to give you if you would like it. But we didn't print that many because we're not in the business of creating paperweights and plans that sit on shelves. It's available in a digital format as well. But our goal was to create a language, a shared language that people could use when describing some of the issues that we face in this community, and to hopefully come to solutions. The first part was a written document. It's fairly static, but we also referenced the fact that many entities would want some mapping, that they would like to be able to see where natural resources occur on the land, and that the ability to see many of those natural resources at the same time might be very informative. Talking about maps is not nearly as good as seeing maps. As part of our project, we've created an online atlas, a repository of nearly 500 publicly available data layers that are all available to be viewed simultaneously. And Dustin's going to show us a little bit about how that works. But my greatest example is a farmer who came to us and suggested that if he wanted to see what groundwater basin he was in, what soil type he had, what his zoning was, he would have had to go into 3 different offices in the county and likely viewed either online maps or paper maps. He couldn't have put that information into one place. All publicly available data layers, but a difficult problem for an individual landowner, all solved by a public tool that simply takes those data layers and places them right where someone can overlap them if they wish. We're grateful for the opportunity to speak with you. Dustin Pierce and the Conservation Biology Institute, remarkable organization that helped us to put together the online atlas and have a lot of geospatial data mapping expertise. And he's going to walk you through a little bit more of what we've created. We'll be happy to take your questions.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Yep. Thank you, everybody on the commission. My name is Dustin Pierce. I'm a GIS analyst for the Conservation Biology Institute, and the project manager for this blueprint project. Right now I'm going to be giving you a preview of the atlas and going through a few slides describing some of the capabilities of it. And then right after that I'm going to go live to show you some of the maps that we have developed that I think may be of particular interest for this group and for others as well. For starters, the atlas itself, the way we viewed it and the way it was set up was to be a transparent public mapping platform for all community members to go through and utilize. The entire thing is built to be a durable and permanent repository for any of the work that you do, any of the maps that are created, and any of the data sets that are uploaded to it. We really did see this as something that would be a resource for future planning in the region. It's something that we have seen in bits and pieces as we've really marketed this and put it out into the public sphere. The last thing I'll note, and I'll get into this a little bit more, but it's really based around user control. The intent behind that is we're dealing with data, we're dealing with spatial data, and we realize that for different departments and different organizations, they're going to need control over that if they're really going to buy in and use this. So the first part of this, I want you to imagine if you were to go in and somebody had asked you or asked one of your staff if they wanted to see cropland within the county. We're looking at the home page here for the actual atlas. It would be as simple as going in here, going to the search bar at the top right, typing in cropland. You would get a search feed back, and excuse some of the colors on here. You would get the first data set you would see. You can pull that up directly. You're going to have a full description of where this data came from, what it is, who produced it, when it was uploaded, and then you can also just directly dive in. If you wanted to go in and see directly Santa Maria, you could type that in to go to that location. It'll take you right there, and you can see the different crop types that we would have within that region of the county. In this case, we're seeing vineyards in the purple. We're seeing the actual field and truck crops across most of the Santa Maria Valley, as well as some of the citrus and subtropical crops as well. Yes, we do have rangeland. So if you wanted to see another data layer, this one's the Farmland Mapping and Monitoring Program data. This is from the Department of Conservation, and they come out with this every 2 years. This is updated in partnership with the county. This is looking at different classifications of farmland. Within this, the colors are a little bit off, but we do have grazing land showing up in this as well. And it's a little bit easier back over here to see some of that. So if we wanted to look at both of those, we could just pull them up, and you could toggle between those if you wanted to. But the other part is you can just peel those layers off if you want to see one or the other directly. And you can also change a base map if you wanted to see, okay, I don't want to see just the streets, I want to see what is actually there, and I want to see how that gets classified over the top. If this was something that you created and you were happy with this, it's as simple as 2 minutes to go fill this in, and I'll be going through a few maps as well. Many of them are already public, but you just have to fill in a title, credits, and then this will get stored in your own workspace. This would be what you would have at the end of that. You would have a full page with a URL that you could then share with anybody. They would not have to be logged into the system, and to sign up, it is free right now to use all of the capabilities that we currently have, and anybody could go look at this map that you just created. This next part here, I know there's a lot of planners in the room, and a lot of your staff do planning at more of a local scale. We're looking at a parcel data set that was uploaded by the county that we are able to ingest into the platform. We can go in, we can look directly at whatever APN that happens to be. But the other part of this, if you're looking at a project-specific site, you can go in and add drawings as well, and that's going to tell you for each one of these how large that parcel is. That drawing you can move into other maps. You can even do things like add annotation with specific text as well. And the other part too, you can export all of this as a PDF, the direct image files, or PowerPoint. So if you didn't want to share this as a URL, if this was more sensitive data, this is another really easy way to then take that map that you just created and share that. This last thing I'm going to touch on is the group function. So we built in a lot of user control behind all of this. You can create maps, you can upload your own data sets, But the other part of it is you can go in and create your own groups. So this could be for different departments. This could be for different municipalities. There could be one just for LAFCO. But what it lets you do is control all of the content that you're looking at, store those in different folders, and it goes beyond just the maps and data sets that we have. You can upload Excel files, PDF files, whatever it may be, and it's all in one central location. And the only people that can access that are the members that you have within that group. So it makes it a really easy way to either go through a long-term project if you're sharing data throughout that, or if you're working within a department, to have it all in one central location for people to access. So to finish, I'm going to hop over to show you just a few more things. Using the Blueprint Atlas, it really is around some of these central tenets, and some of the things that I view this is useful for a lot of the LAFCO commissioners. You get ability to develop groups and different website pages. You get the ability to organize and share maps and data. You get the ability to export those maps for projects, for presentations, or just to share with the general public. And it can be something where you can upload and maintain department data that can be shared publicly, and it's going to be in a very transparent fashion. So I'm going to hop back over right now, and I'm going to show you a few more things. This is our main landing web page here that we're looking at. If you're wanting to access, there we go. All right, we're back on. So we're on the main landing web page right now, and if you wanted to access the report that Chet was referencing earlier, the easiest way to do that would just be going in and clicking on that Blueprint Report and Executive Summary button. That's going to pop you down, and then you can come in here and view and download that report or the Executive Summary. But what we really came to talk about and what I really wanted to share right now was this online atlas. So if I click on that button, it'll bring me to the atlas that we're looking at here. I had a few maps that I wanted to show you. The first one is this land use change over time data set. So this map itself, and I'm going into it right now, and I'm going to just go ahead and zoom over to Santa Maria. We're going to be showing you what land uses looked like since 1954, moving out to current. So the pink that we're seeing in the middle of the screen there, that was the urban extent in 1954 for Santa Maria. What we can do when you're looking at this is peel that off, and then now we have this layer, and we have data going from 1984, and we're going to be looking out to 2012 here, but we can actually watch how Santa Maria has grown over time. So this is playing out, and you're actually seeing where that development has happened, where agriculture has had to expand as a result, and what some of those impacts of long-term land use change have been on the valley. This is very useful when you're trying to get the point across that direct conversion of agriculture does lead to more intensive agriculture moving elsewhere. And if we wanted to see what that looks like currently, it hasn't changed all too much, but the most recent one was 2016 that we're looking at here. The other thing I wanted to just show you, there's a number of images available in aerial imagery that are available across the county. What we're looking at here, and what I'm going to bring up in this separate map, is aerial imagery that we have for the south coast of Santa Barbara, and that's for 1954. So we're looking at right here, Santa Barbara's over here. This is what people refer to as Nolita. This is what it looked like in 1954, and you'll notice I'm using that swiper to peel back. We're looking at imagery for 2016, so this is currently what we have on the ground. And if you're trying to get a really long time horizon for how things have changed, this is a very useful tool, and this is something we can expand to different cities when you're talking about planning and what that means. And again, it really points to the effects that we have seen, and also just the long-term land use history of the county. The last thing I want to point to here, and this is something that I had shared earlier, and this is just a map to show you some of the basic data that I'm sure many of your planners and staff use every day. Again, I'll just go ahead and zoom over to Santa Barbara here now, but the data that we have available, we're looking at the city spheres of influence, but we have a number of other data sets, whether we wanted to look at protected lands, if that was something of interest. We can look at those concurrently with that. If we wanted to look at water districts, we can look at water districts across the county as well. If we wanted to look at the supervisor districts, that's also available in here. And if you wanted city boundaries, that's also available. And we have a number of other data sets. It's a little bit tough to go through 500 in just one presentation, so I'm trying to give you a taste of what's available, but we do view this as something that could be crucially useful when you're talking about planning and sharing this with the public and making that available. So with that, I do want to open it up for questions. We should have about, I think, 10 minutes left to go through any that you may have. And I do just want to thank you guys again for letting us present this.
Thank you, gentlemen. That was very well done. Commissioner comments? Sure. Commissioner Waterfield.
I have a question. You said you have the county districts on this site as well. Now that the cities are going through districts, will you be having those as well on this website?
As those become available, we right now are currently going through and maintaining the data sets that are already on there to make sure they don't get stale. So as those do become available, we can make sure those are uploaded. A lot of the data that we have focused on uploading has been based on user feedback. So when people have asked, you know, can you get this data set? Is this something available? One to reference would be some old geologic maps that people were wanting to see. We're trying to get those currently updated. And we have brought in data also to look at some of the effects of the recent Thomas fire as well. So yeah, when those are available, we can easily upload those.
They would be available from the city of Santa Maria, so if you contact them or I can have them contact you to get those.
I've worked with a few of their planners,
okay,
so that shouldn't be a problem at all.
Okay, great, thank you.
Well done. Other comments? Commissioner Stark.
Yeah, I got two, you should pardon me, simplistic questions. This is the first question. Can a member of the public, Google this thing and get the same information, or is it limited to government agencies? That's the first question.
This is made for the entire community. Anybody can go on, anybody can access any of the data sets we saw, and they can set up an account for free and have full access to save maps, create groups, or upload their own data.
Can you search through it and say, I want to find out how much rangeland is left on the mesa or something? Exactly. I could do that. I guess my second question, what's the practical application of this as far as an agency that's like hearing a case?
It would be due diligence in pulling together all of the data and information in one location that makes it easier for either staff to review, either the public to review, or for commissioners to review. I really see that as kind of a key central tenet of this. There are other advanced features if we wanted to do site analyses, but that's probably for a longer discussion.
Maybe I can speak to that. The entities that built the blueprint, they went out and collected this data. We all saw this as a way for us to better be more strategic and effective in our missions. But we also felt like if we were going to spend all this time and energy collecting this data, why not offer it back to the community? This was not designed to be a governmental tool. It was primarily designed to help the community understand the natural resources and to have that conversation. To be quite honest with you, the supervisors in the cities, they have staff that have probably better mapping capabilities than this product can provide. But we did hear from a couple of the supervisors that when they want a map, it takes them 2 weeks to get a map. Well, I can turn on the computer and get you that map with some level of error, probably, in 2 minutes. And that ability to more quickly, or for the layperson and not the geospatial mapping staff at the county or city or whatever level, that ability to get an answer quick or to get a hunch quick, I think is a benefit that this can offer to the community. I think it also levels the playing field for a lot of landowners who felt behind in the in the planning process. And we have a landowner that was very involved in this process who lives out in the Cuyama Valley, and she suggested every time that she wants to have an improvement on her property, she shows up at the planning and zoning, and they've got a new map that she's never seen before, or there's an advocate there saying she shouldn't do it because there's a species that she's never heard of that happens to be on her property. She loves this tool because it allows her on her own to go find out a lot of what is out there in advance of getting blindsided, for lack of a better term, at some sort of planning process, and she likes access to that.
That leaves me one more question, if you don't mind.
Commissioner Hart. Stark, take it away.
My question is, have you made any attempt to integrate this tool into the environmental review process?
We've made no attempt, and I don't think that's our role.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a
Commissioner
question.
Scaring, go ahead.
Yes, so do you deal with the data, the digital mapping at UCSB? I saw Brand School was listed. Is that part of their contribution, or is that, because they're very advanced at digital mapping? You must work with them, I just wondered.
We are blessed in our community to get about 60 to 100 Bren School graduates each year who all want to stay close to Santa Barbara, and they all have this skill set involved, one of which is Dustin Pierce.
Welcome to the community, sir.
So, but yes, the university was a great source of data, as was the county, as were the cities, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, the Forest Service, the United States Fish and Wildlife Service. All those agencies of different sizes and entities were sources for the data, but you're correct, the university has a wealth of data, and they were one of the first groups that we sought out to be on our steering committee because we wanted to access that. The faculty as well, we interviewed a lot of members of the faculty as we were trying to write sort of the community opinion and the direction in this written document, and so you'll see those names listed as interviewees within the document.
Thank you.
There was a meeting after the debris flow, I guess we're supposed to call it now. It was a mudslide when we met at the school, and they had maps up, and this young man got up and said, "Why are you showing fire maps when we just had a mudslide?" And he said, "Do you know that the UCSB has this digital map? You can have the up-to-date map in a second, a few minutes. Why are you showing us this?" And he had a huge, understandable outburst about this, and they couldn't explain why the emergency services wasn't utilizing these resources. So it looks like you're sort of a link between the two slow-moving bureaucracies, and
I would say that wasn't the intent, but I would say it's an ancillary benefit I think we can provide, and within a few days of the debris flow, we had ensured that we had all those fire maps, FEMA maps, debris flow outlines. When we get the new elevation survey later on this month, we'll put that in as well. As soon as it's publicly available, if we know about it, if we have the capacity, we'll put it up there. I will say that what we put up there will link you right back to where the origin of that data is. So there could be data in there you may not agree with. You can find out exactly who created it, when it was created, and why it was created, because we want that transparency. We're not vouching for this, but we will send you to the exact website where we found it, if that's fair.
Good. Commissioner Richardson.
Chad, can we get your contact information? I'd like you to make this presentation before the Salt City Council, if you would.
how about LAFCO conference?
Yeah.
I would tell you, one, I think we'd be interested perhaps in all of those. This concept of a conservation blueprint is not unique. The communities in Santa Cruz and around the Bay Area and Sonoma have all done these sort of plans. We're somewhat of the first in the southern hemisphere, if that's fair to say. But they're catching on across the country, and we're happy to present it. We have a goal to have this be something that gets used, and the more we talk about it and the more people that engage with it, the more feedback we get, the better we improve it, and it serves on its own. I will tell you, that's somewhat selfish of me, because the Land Trust would like to use this data probably every 5 to 10 years for our strategic planning. We want to know that the properties that we are conserving on behalf of the community are actually wanted by the community and that we're not wasting money. These mapping tools help us do that. The more people who use the blueprint, the more up-to-date the data is when I come back to make my next strategic plan from the data. So the more often the community, is embracing this, the cheaper it is for me to do a strategic plan 10 years from now. But the cheaper it is for everybody to do a strategic direction or to understand that conversation. So we would love to get it out. And on the back of this document, which I've left over here next to the land light, is a website for the blueprint, and I'll leave a couple business cards for me there as well.
Commissioner Waterfield.
I just had one more comment. Many years ago, I used to do a lot of research for developers because this area was so rich with oil and tank farms and stuff like that, and I spent many hours at the Division of Oil and Gas. Is this another layer you could add for research processes, or is that information?
It's already in there.
It is? Oh, fantastic.
And there's from my work, there's a distinct need to understand underlying mineral rights and where existing wells, old wells, exist. So all that information is already included in this, and it gets updated with some frequency. So that's already can be found in there. You can dig that up pretty easily. Search for oil.
Thank you, Commissioner Iskanian.
Well, this is, I guess, thinking of all the places we could put this to use, but what about these various state agencies that come up with mandates, such as the Housing Community Development Department or agency? They come up with numbers that we often feel are arbitrary, with stack and pack housing and so on, that take up, just throw them, get them out of here, that you have to do with no consideration of the topography or biodiversity and all of this stuff. So, I mean, there's a great place to have access to your information before they make these arbitrary assignment of numbers to various counties and cities to know what's out there.
I don't have enough background to know everything that you're talking about, but the concept of where to put future growth is exactly what the blueprint is about. And it's
yeah,
not
it sure is.
I happen to come from an organization that would really prioritize keeping it out of ag lands and critical wildlife habitat and migration corridors. There's probably a dozen entities that would keep it out of this neighborhood or that neighborhood or this asset. We didn't try and prescribe with the blueprint. We just tried to give you a way to make those decisions. And so when someone wants to say, okay, what do we need to avoid if we want to avoid critical wildlife habitat? There's a map for that. What do we need to avoid if we want to avoid prime farmland and prime soils and the most productive ag land in California? There's a map for that.
Wow.
So what we would love this to be used for is to help inform a community, and perhaps the simplicity of the mapping tool is a great way to get your constituents and the community to look up some of this information on their own. Describing a map is the worst thing you can ever do. Showing a map is what the best way, and this allows people to see a lot of these interest areas real time on the land, and we hope that that's of benefit to the whole community, yourselves included.
Does your tool include historical marks or locations or
I don't know if we have any historic structures, and it certainly does not put any archaeological dots on the map.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, that's a very sensitive thing from an archaeological perspective. That's, we work within the bounds of whoever creates the data as of the sensitivity with which we display it, and archaeological data is just not shared. And but historic markers and stuff like that we can probably easily put on a map.
Yeah, we have some of that in there, historical structures and stuff like that.
Do you get back to the Mexican or Spanish land grants? You go that far back in history?
We have a copy of the land grant map. Maybe we should put the old ranchos boundaries. Obviously, it's very, very rough, but maybe we should put that in there because we use it all the time in our work to understand who was the landowner, 180 years ago, 200 years ago.
I'm a De La Guerra, and so at one time my family had 10,000 acres or a million acres or whatever. And now I have nothing.
We have a gathering at the Land Trust where we sometimes get 300 to 400 Ortegas together. Yeah. But I heard someone the other day drop the trump card on me on Main Street and said they were a Cabrillo. So
I'm a Cabrillo as well.
I'm not sure you're allowed to call it the trump card anymore either.
Well said.
Any other questions, observations? Thank you very much. Oh,
I just wanted to, thank you all. I'm so excited that you had an opportunity to see this. As Chet said, it's been 2.5 years or in the making, and really envisioned for long before that, so that you could use something as a common basis for discussion. I anticipate that we'll be using it at the county for grant applications with the passage of Prop 68. A lot of those monies are dedicated for park poor areas, and so you can look at where is park rich, park poor, how far is it from mass transit, does it connect to trails? So you can ask it questions and have it do part of the analysis and submit that as part of your grant application. So I think nonprofits in particular and government agencies will find it useful in that regard. So I appreciate everybody's hard work.
Yeah. Again, gentlemen, thank you very much. Very well done. Really
Thank you for your time.
Is there any public comment on information item number 1?
Chair Walton, members of the commission, we have no requests to speak on this item.
Thank you. The next item is information number 2. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Welton, members of the commission, informational item number 2 is to receive and file a report on the mailed ballot nominations for the LAFCO alternate special district member and the election of the special district member to serve on the Redevelopment Agency Oversight Board.
Mr. Hood.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we've been going through a very interesting few months on this process to select the members, the Special District Selection Committee appointment of the Redevelopment Agency Oversight Board, and also the appointment of the LAFCO alternate special district representative. And some of this, and I've had discussions with some of the commissioners on the process that we have that has taken place. And as you know, just to go back a little bit, on March 26th, we convened, your executive officer convened a meeting of the Independent Special District Selection Committee, and to attempt to select the LAFCO representative, at least get nominations for the alternate LAFCO Special District representative, and to have a selection of the RDA Oversight Board. We didn't have a quorum at that meeting. We had 16 and we needed 20 special districts. So I engaged in a mailed out ballot for both of those, and we had the nominations for the special district alternate member because we couldn't get nominations from the floor at the meeting on March 26th because we didn't have a quorum. And so we had nominations for the RDA Oversight Board appointment. And so the nominations were due back and the election on May 25th. And we were able to get a quorum. We had, I think, 21 votes for the RDA appointment, and you'll be pleased to know that a familiar face was elected. Craig Geyer from the Goleta West Sanitary District received 18 of the 21 votes, and so he was deemed the representative to the RDA Oversight Board. And we did get 2 nominations. David Seymour for the alternate LAFCO representative special district, David Seymour from the Santa Ynez Community Services District, and Ethan Bertram from the Isla Vista Community Services District. So last week, Jacqueline and I mailed out ballots for the alternate, and we have July 6th as the date that the ballots need to be sent back. Again, we need to get at least 20 votes. Ballots received, and if we only get 20, which is a quorum, and Bill and I were discussing this, that the majority would win the seat on LAFCO, and so there's only 2. So if we get one individual that gets more votes than the other, and we get at least 20 votes, that person would become your alternate special district representative, and I personally will bring them back to the commission to introduce them to you, whoever it might be. So that kind of concludes that. There still is some confusion about the mail ballot. because I guess that a few days ago the special districts met, and there's still not a complete understanding of the process. And some of the special district members may wish to make comments on that, but I think I have high confidence that we'll get at least 20 votes received, and we'll have an alternate special district representative. I'll have entertain any questions you might have at this point.
Any questions, observations, concerns? Commissioner Hartman?
This is really just an add-on, not directly but indirectly related. That is the CSD and Isla Vista's. Their tax passed with 85% of the vote.
Wow, good one. Thank you for that. Yeah, congratulations, Commissioner Geyer, on your election. Way to go. Are there any public comments?
Chair Walton, members of the commission, we have no requests to speak on this item.
Thank you. Moving on, the next item is information item number 3. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Walt and members of the commission, informational item number 3 is to receive and file a report on the commission's schedule of processing fees.
Mr. Hood.
Chairman, again, Paul Hood, LAFCO Executive Officer. We had some comments last month when the commission approved the final budget on May 3rd for the 18-19 fiscal year about trying to tighten up on our processing fee schedules to charge applicants and folks that deal with LAFCO. And we did have a significant revision to the processing fees at the July 1st, 2017 commission meeting. And so I included that. And it's more of an information item that we do have the ability to collect fees that are over the initial deposit. We can charge out at an hourly rate of $175 an hour, and the clerk and legal counsel can also charge fees for any kind of application processing that goes above and beyond the actual deposit. We included the fees for the assessor and elections costs that we received from the in the 16-17 fiscal year. We received about $62,000 in fees from the assessor for work that they had done. There's probably some question as to if we requested that they could do the work anyway, but they billed us for it. There's a 3-hour pre-application review process that we would not charge for 3 hours initially, and then bill on a real-time billing rate for any additional time that we spent. We can charge for protest hearings. We can also charge when a commission meeting includes any kind of out-of-pocket expenses, or we charge for, Public Records Act requests and mailing and notice of hearings. We can charge for that. So I think that we're pretty well covered on out-of-pocket expenses. It's just a matter of processing the requests and keeping track of time. And sometimes it's hard to, when you spend, a little bit of time and then you spend a lot of time to actually track how much time you spent and send a bill. So that's kind of where we are with this cost recovery. And I think that it depends how aggressive we want to be. And your commission may hear get some feedback from folks that we bill for things that we haven't billed for in the past that are now allowed by our fee schedule.
Thank you, Mr. Hood. Are there any questions, concerns, observations from the commissioners?
Yes, Chair Wall. Commissioner Geyer.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I have a question on fee policy number 9. I think it would be good to take a look at that and possibly rewrite it. If you look at the first sentence where LAFCO collects a deposit payable to the County of Santa Barbara, it makes it kind of sound like LAFCO's not the one that has the account. The County of Santa Barbara has one. I would feel that for bookkeeping wise, it would be better to have LAFCO collect a deposit made out to LAFCO, because we're the ones, LAFCO is the one that has the account with the county surveyor's office. They bill us for it. And in the second sentence, I assume the first word is additional, not addition?
Yes.
Okay. But that sentence there too should really be rewritten. And the last sentence to it, I mean, that definitely didn't happen. Boundary changes, maps were filed and recorded, and then we turn around and get a bill a year later. I would like to see that policy given some consideration for rewrite.
Mr. Chairman, I can make a comment if you wish.
Mr. Hood.
Actually, the bill is, the check is made to the county of Santa Barbara because it's a county surveyor's cost. We just accept the deposit and give it to them, and they track all of the time that's spent on maps and legal descriptions, and they deal directly with the applicant. It doesn't have anything to do with LAFCO. The only thing that when we get involved is that we now require that a map and legal description be finalized prior to processing an application, and that was the case with the Foss annexation that Mr. Foss, I tried to explain to him that, you know, we're waiting for your private surveyor, civil engineer to get the maps that are approved by the county surveyor's office before we actually accept the application as complete. We didn't take into account that his surveyor was on vacation for 3 weeks and out of the country, and so the map and legal description actually delayed the application from being completed. So it's something that we collect the initial fee, but we don't track the costs of the corrections, and so that's, you know, that's where that is. It's not a LAFCO. It's not made out to LAFCO, and I would not recommend that we do that because we don't need more additional tracking to keep track of what the county surveyor time that they spend. And they routinely send out bills, and I've seen copies. They copy me on it, and until that bill is paid, they kind of stop work on checking the map and legal, and that happens all the time.
Okay.
Especially with large annexations or formations of districts.
Thank you. Commissioner Geyer, comments?
I accept it.
Thank you, Commissioner Geyer. Is there any public comment on information item number 3?
Chair Walton, members of the commission, we have no requests to speak on this item.
Thank you. Moving on. Next item is information item 4. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Walton and members of the commission, informational item number 4 is to receive and file a report on the 2018 Cal LAFCO upcoming events.
Mr. Hood.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there are some significant events coming up, one of which we talked about, the Cal LAFCO annual conference, and we'll be accepting requests to process the registration fee and accommodations. It's held October 3rd through the 5th, as we discussed changing our meeting calendar at Tenaya Lodge in Yosemite. There's also board recruitment for the board of directors of the Cal LAFCO, and also the nomination packets for that, as well as achievement awards. And I included all of the information in your agenda item so that we can follow up, you know, noting the deadlines. The achievement awards deadline is August 3rd, and nominations for the board of directors is September 4th, and then the registration material. So this is more of an information item just to keep you in the loop on if anyone wants to run for the Cal LAFCO board of directors or wants to nominate any commission staff work products for for an achievement award. That's something that can come up in the next couple of months, assuming we have meetings in time.
Thank you for that. I noticed that the positions that are open for Cal LAFCO in the coastal region, representative from the county and a representative from the district.
Districts.
So yeah. So if anybody's interested, it's a wonderful experience. Been there, done that. Cal LAFCO. Information item number 4.
Third page.
They don't need special districts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Special districts on the Cal LAFCO board of directors.
Something to think about.
Okay.
That's well worth it.
Start the campaign now.
Yeah. Get a lot of advice here. Cal LAFCO. Oh, LAFCO.
You would
the
nominate,
state. Yeah.
as Santa Barbara LAFCO, but then the votes would take place at the business meeting at the Cal LAFCO conference. You may want to, as a condition of the alternate special district representative, make sure that they are nominated for the Cal LAFCO board as a condition of being seated on your, just kidding.
No, yeah, really. I can share with you my experience if you're interested, off the table, so if you'd like that. Okay, we're moving on. Item 5.
Chair Walt and members of the commission, informational item number 5 is to receive and file a status report on 2016 through 2017 fiscal year billings from the county assessor and county elections.
Thank you. Mr. Hood.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We only have one of the districts, the Los Olivos Community Services District, that has not paid their assessor and elections billings completely. I need to compliment them. They've submitted 4 checks for $5,000 each for a total of $20,000, and they still owe $5,152.27. So they have promised to pay that, and I believe them.
Forget about it. Let the minutes reflect.
Especially the 27 cents. I think it's going to make or break our budget.
Any comments from the commissioners? Any public comment on item number 5?
Chair Welt and members of the commission, we have no requests to speak on this item.
Thank you. We will now go to commissioner announcements and any requests for future agenda items. Anybody have any comments? If not, we will move into the director report. Executive officer's comments.
I have a couple of things, and one was, it was very interesting. I attended and Commissioner Hartman was at the meeting as well. The first meeting of the Los Olivos Community Services District on May 24th in the elementary school in Los Olivos. It went very well, and it was an interesting process. There were a couple of comments that were made that you probably need to record your meetings, and so that if there's things that you need to follow up on, that you might want to do that. Somebody said they would record it on their cell phone. I didn't think that was probably a good way to do it for a permanent record. So they are proceeding, I think, very well. Johanna Hartley from County Counsel's office gave a very good update on the Brown Act and conflict of interest codes, and she did an excellent job on that. Have to compliment her. She was very good. And I talked about the process a little bit, about how the district was formed and the long time and hurdles that they had to face. I suggested that because they have a special tax, that they need to expeditiously work with the county auditor's office to make sure that they don't miss the deadline for that to be collected. And the deadline is coming up within the next month and a half. So I gave them recently a list of all of the APNs that we had when we did the formation hearings. They need to be updated, and I think they're familiar with the latest assessment rolls. Supervisor Farr was at the meeting, and she made some very nice comments about being at the beginning of the formation process, and it was very heartwarming that she made some recommendations and wished them success. Do you have any comments on that?
Well, I think first of all, to acknowledge Mr. Hood's role in, I can't imagine how many meetings you've attended and how many community questions and phone calls you've responded to about this whole process, and you made me very proud to be a member of LAFCO, how responsive you were to the community that we serve. What I remember is I attended the IVCSD meeting that I think went for 7.5 hours, and so I was very grateful when the Los Olivos one finished in about 2.5. And again, Johanna Hartley and getting them off on the right foot was really super, because nobody wants to make a mistake. I think there's a bit of a chicken and an egg problem, because they don't get any money, but they've got to apply to the county for this, whatever they need. And I think it's a $10,000 fee or something. So anyway, they got to figure that out.
There is a fee that's outstanding, and as for the State Board of Equalization, a $2,000 fee that they need to pay quickly so that they can establish their own tax rate area for the special tax. So I'm encouraging them to pay the fee, and we've already filled out the documentation and just need to submit it to the state. I'd hate to see them go through the process and say, you know, we didn't pay the fee, and so we can't collect the tax. You know, that's the worst thing that could happen, but I think they'll pay that. But I think they're moving along, and they're going to meet once a month. Tom Fayrem is the president, and he was elected, so he'll keep them in line. I think he's the county water agency deputy, and so he's a very good, knows a lot about the process. And they have a couple of engineers and some very good public relations people, consultants, and some other really good people on the district, on the board.
Thank you, Mr. Hood. Commissioner Stark?
Yeah, I have a simple question. Do you know if the presentation that Ms. Hartley made on the Brown Act was the Political Reform Act or the Public Records Act? Probably the Public Records Act. Do you know if it was in writing? Brown Act and Comps would be the Political Reform Act. So do you know if that was in writing?
Yes. It was in writing. She did a PowerPoint, so that's
So theoretically, if they're still talking to me in the county counsel's office, I could call them up and get a link or a copy, right? Thanks.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
We just had one more quick comment.
Paul.
We talked about the out-of-agency service agreement, so we're moving ahead with the City of Santa Maria. And we were informed that we need to file certificates of completion for the Guayama Basin Water District in San Luis Obispo and Ventura counties, because although Santa Barbara LAFCO was the principal LAFCO, it overlaps. And so they need, and they're getting pretty antsy, so we're going to try and file those as soon as we can. The assessor's office in San Luis Obispo County wants to make sure that they're filed. So Jacqueline and I are working on those. And that's it. That's all I had.
All done. Thank you. Well, thank you, everybody. I will adjourn this meeting to our next meeting in July. Thank you very much.